Hello everyone. Hope everyone is enjoying and having a lazy Saturday, but I hope you are all excited to learn a lot about AWS, generative AI, and as well as becoming a solution architect. My name is Ashish, and I would be helping you today to understand the flow of the session, and we'll quickly go forward with lots of interesting stuff. Keep your questions coming. We have expert panel here. There are a lot of volunteers today who would help you out with understanding the questions you have. So feel free to ask as many questions as you have. Give me a minute. I'll introduce few people in a minute, but let me ask a icebreaker question first so that we all get started and you know how to use the chat. Tell me in which language you had your first Hello World program, what you used. I'll tell about me and now you can guess my age based on that. I used Turbo Pascal to write my first Hello World. Let me know in the chat what was your first Hello World program in. Probably Java, maybe .NET. Let me know in the chat what you have used for first Hello World program. C. Okay, that's good. Python, C, good. C is a common one. I can see a lot of people using C for that. Anyone who has not written Hello World program, probably you should rethink why you are here then if you have not done that. Python, Pascal, Miroslav, yeah, that's a good one. Okay, and we have a lot of people coming in from different places and different locations and in different backgrounds. So I'll quickly brief you about what this program is. Probably some of you are new, so we'll quickly get started here. So I'll introduce quickly the team to you. That is one of me. I am here, and then we have other people. I'll add them one by one. We have new people also today to help us. So obviously, you know Prasad, who is co-founder for this program, and then we have Parna, who is also in a core team. This time we are getting a lot of support from Kavya. So Kavya is here. Then we have also Shashank. Shashank is camera shy, I guess, right now, but yeah, he is there to support us. And then we have Marco also, who is going to support today. Hey Shashank, how is it going? Marco is here also. So from different time zone, people from US, UK, and if you are around, Prasad is in India. So if you can get hold of him, go ahead and meet him if you are around. And Shashank is based in Bangalore. Parna is in Mumbai. Kavya is in US. I'm in UK. So obviously a lot of Marco. How about you? You are Toronto. Yeah, see this one. So a lot of people are helping you from all over the world. So thank you everyone, and hopefully everyone would get the best out of this particular program. And I'll be on camera for a while, but other people would join in as needed. And then keep your questions coming in, and we are answering question in the chat. Dave is talking about I am not counting basic on my Commodore. That was a good one, Dave. That I remember that particular thing. Commodore was a good one. Okay, now let's go ahead and discuss few more things here. Marco, a quick introduction. Probably people do not know you, why, where you came, and what you do. So a quick introduction would be helpful here. Marco.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to help out here. My name is Marco. I am a senior technical trainer at AWS Training and Certification. I'm the guy that teaches all the courses for all of the different types of topics. I've got 16 certs, so pretty much the whole thing, golden jacket holder. And yeah, I'm really excited to be here to try to help you out, to try to help answer your questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Marco. And we will now quickly get started with the actual session. So give me a minute. I'm struggling a little bit with my monitor as of now, but hopefully it should be sorted. Okay. All right. So probably you know about BESA website. So check website and then you can get a lot of information. You should be able to get a lot of FAQs and all. People who are joining us first time, this is the 8-week program, 3 p.m. GMT, 90-minute session. We focus on generative AI and we focus on lots of hands-on learning. So you would be learning about workshops and how to complete it and what you could do. This is, if you are first time, you should be able to have Batch 06 playlist as a suggested prerequisite. So that would give you a lot of information and understanding of how all these things work. Technical track would be 60 minutes. We would be using public workshops which are available, and then we would have key concept followed by hands-on experience. So we'll talk about theory and then we'll go into the practicals of it where you will be able to see these things. Yeah, golden jacket is a very coveted thing, and it's good to have two people who have golden jacket here who are helping you out. So leverage them. And if you are doing this workshop on your own on your AWS account, make sure you clean it up. Otherwise, you would end up accruing a lot of money, which we don't want. So please clean workshops up once you are done. Talking about behavioral track, we will be focusing on solution architecting, and we'll be focusing on the interview process end to end. So it's a pretty interesting today. We'll talk about end to end process also. We'll discuss that thing also. And again, try to reinforce what you can do to get the most value from the BESA program. I would say participate fully, keep on interacting with people who are here, and then send us questions. Also ask questions. And if you do not know, I started publishing question answer in 1 minute. So any question which I feel was not answered or anything which can be of greater interest, I put a 1 minute video around it and publish it on YouTube. So I'll send you a link for that. Share your learning. If you learned something, share it on the whole ecosystem so that everyone knows about it. Engage with community. We have Discord channel, we have LinkedIn, so that would be a good way to engage with people. Challenge yourself. We will show a portion of the lab or workshop, but you should try to go ahead further into it and try to then leverage it to learn more around it. So that's what you should be doing. And again, staying consistent is the biggest important thing. I don't expect a result to come just by joining 1 or 2 sessions. If you want to feel confident, if you want to learn skills, please be consistent and provide feedback that what we can do to improve and how we can make better presentations and better training sessions for you. So that's what we are looking for. Talking about today, we will talk about extending capabilities of foundation model in technical track. That would be Parna and me. And then we would have Roland, who would be helping us with understanding the whole end-to-end process of AWS Solution Architect interview. So pretty good, interesting discussion, which is going to happen. All right. Let me start by talking about technical track, extending capabilities of foundation model. What we are trying to do here, why we are doing it, I'll give you the idea and then we'll go into the technical details associated with it. Right. But before that, let's do one more ice-breaking activity just to give you an understanding of why we need to extend capabilities of foundation model. So be ready. Answer in chat that, let's say, scenario is I trained a model last week and now I'm going to ask some question to a model, right? So scenario is I trained the model last week and now I'm going to ask some questions. Now you have to tell me, will I get the correct answer or not? Now what you could do, you could say true, true, false, yes, no, no. So three questions would be there and you have to give me answer about it. Not like complicated long word answer, yes, no type of answer. So yes, 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 no, 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 yes, 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 whatever you prefer. These are the 3 questions. I'm asking these 3 questions to the model which I have trained a week before. What I should be getting? Should I be getting the correct time? Should I be getting what happened in the meeting between Trump and Zelensky yesterday? Or when was Amazon Prime Day in 2023? It does not depend, Gaurav. There is a clear-cut answer on that. No. So these are the questions which you are seeing on the screen. So tell me in a one single sentence, yes, 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 no, no, no. Yeah, that is Rankesh. That is a good way to explain it. No, no, yes, yes, no, yes, yes, no, yes. Okay. Interesting things are happening here, as you could clearly see. And as it's an ice-breaking activity, I would encourage you to do this on the model of your choice in Amazon Bedrock, and then you would know what the answers would be coming up. No, no, yes, Ramandeep. Okay. First thing, models are frozen in time. Frozen in time in the sense that whenever the model was created, that time whatever knowledge was acquired by the model, it remains the same. It does not automatically improve itself. So it may not be possible for a model by default to learn about whatever things are happening here and there on the time. Now, what is the current time? Model does not know from where I am asking the question, or it has no context associated with it. So it won't be able to answer this particular question for me. So first question's answer is going to be coming out as no, that hey, model will say, I don't know what your current time is because I have no context associated with, because same time in UK it's a different time, in US it is different time. So it's not the something which model can explain. Question 2, what happened in meeting between Trump and Zelensky yesterday? This is a question which I'm asking model which has been trained a week before. It is frozen in time model, so it is not going to have any idea at all about what happened yesterday. So that is also not going to work for me. So just be aware about that. The model is not able to provide me answer on these things. Third question, when was Amazon Prime Day in 2023? I would say probably I would get answer for this because my model would have learned about the things about 2023 by far, and it should be able to give me the answers associated with it. So this is how we should be understanding the foundation model, that they are frozen in time, they do not know everything, and they may not be able to respond. Some common question like what is current time is a very common question what you should be asking, right? So it may not be able to answer that. Let me show this thing here into console. So here I am on console and I am asking to a different model like Jurassic and say, what is current time? The current time is, and it says, hey, I have no clue on that, what you are asking about. So it is not going to tell me about the current time. Let's ask the second question to this model. What happened between the meeting in Zelensky and Trump? Probably everyone has seen that too. So the meeting between US President Zelensky was held September 25, 2019. Okay, this is not the information I'm looking for. It is talking about 2019 data. It has no information about the meeting which has happened yesterday. So that is a problem which we are facing here. And then let me go through the last question here, and probably you would know what should be the answer depending on what the knowledge base of the model is or what the training period was of the model. So Prime Day was held on July 12, 2023. So it knows about it, but nothing beyond it. Everyone okay so far? Do you understand why we need to have some methods of enhancing models capability? Because model are not having a understanding which we may have as a common man, like understanding time, understanding about politics, understanding what happened yesterday. So yeah, that would be a different thing. Exactly, Nitin, you have a different good point there. India Prime Day would be on a different day. That is exactly. Maddie has a question: how to freeze a model? So freezing a model means, Maddie, like when we trained it and then we said, okay, stop training and we are going to deploy you. So whatever you learned, that has been frozen in your memory. That's all what we mean by freezing the model. So that's how we can leverage it. Now, let's talk about RAG, retrieval augmented generation. That is a common thing which you would be using to enhance model capability. So let's talk about RAG, why we need RAG and what can be done through RAG. Let's try to understand it. I prefer explaining things through analogy. So let me use an analogy here to explain some of the concept. And Parna will show you these concept into actual implementation. So it would give you a good idea on that. Consider there is a successful lawyer. That lawyer completed his or her degree, let's say into 2020, and then they started practicing and they are very well known, they are winning a lot of case, they have good clientele, they have good knowledge, and they are able to portray their cases properly and all. But what they learned in 2020, obviously the laws, obviously the challenges in the world, or the interpretation of the law, or the new law has been introduced. So this is a ever changing environment. Like some laws may have been added, some may be deprecated, some may be amended. So that's why you will find that when you go to a lawyer's office, they may have lots and lots of books with them, right? I don't expect they read all these books every single day or they know everything about it, but what they probably be knowing, they probably be knowing that, okay, in this whole bookshelf which I have created, where I have kept things related to cyber law. So let's say this one here is a bookshelf where we have the cyber law related things. Or maybe on this particular shelf, we have all the immigration related law information. Or here, they have all the books related to family law. What this is their knowledge base. So when they need some information which they do not remember at top of their head, or they want to refer something, they go into these books to find out something relevant and then use that to create a argument in front of the court or to help their specific case which they are fighting for. So that is what a knowledge base is on a real world, where we have a lot of information which we did not know when we got trained or when we got education, but as things keeps on changing, we need to get updated, and that is where we are talking about these knowledge bases. Now, common thing which you could use for knowledge bases is to get the proper response from it. Why we need these knowledge bases, or why we need RAG in the first place? Let me go ahead and talk about it. So we want to customize the model which are responding to us. Let's say a simple example. Let's say I go and I have this model created. This model has been trained on to all the public data. I go and ask this particular model that, hey, what is your return policy? Now, model may not know what return policy. Are you talking about return policy of Amazon? Are you talking about return policy of IKEA? IKEA's return policy in UK is 365 days. Amazon's return policy is 30 days. So now model does not have the detail associated. I could give the context, but what if now I am running a company and I have my own return policies, like when customer can return, in what condition they can return. Model is at all not aware about that particular concept, and that is where what we need to have a model, a reference which it can take, and from that reference it should be able to respond to me. That's what we are going to discuss here. This is why we use something called retrieval augmented generation. I'll go into more detail to explain it, but on a high level, the idea is we want to get custom output from models, and that's why we are going to utilize all about these things. So prompt engineering is a common thing which we can use. We talked about it into last session. Then today we will talk about retrieval augmented generation, or RAG, or in a way there are knowledge bases which are involved. So we'll discuss what is knowledge base, what is RAG, and then you could go further and go into fine tuning of your model, or you could go and train your foundation model from scratch. That is a very common thing big companies would be doing for getting a specific answer from it. All right. If everyone is okay so far, give me a +1 in the chat, and then we keep on moving forward to the next topic. If you are clear why we need a retrieval augmented generation, or what we need knowledge bases for, if you have a basic idea now, give me a +1, and then we will keep on moving forward to the implementation detail or configuration details associated with it. That's good. Thank you. Good, good, good. Everyone is enjoying and learning. Let's keep moving forward then. Now, I'm talking about a concept here which is called RAG. Full form is retrieval augmented generation, right? So these three things is a specific process. So consider these three are three independent processes. We are combining them, and that we are getting it something called retrieval augmented generation, RAG. I'll explain it what we mean by that. Let's say I go to my chat client and ask a question that, hey, tell me about the joining detail of BESA program. Okay, good. Maybe model, my program was launched, let's say 2 weeks before, so probably model may not have the information associated with it. So it will try to get the answer. LLM which is running behind the scene of my chat application or mobile client would try to understand, okay, if there is available information, let me pass that information. If it is not, then it has to refer to something what we refer as external knowledge source. So if you're asking a question that what time the BESA session starts, maybe model does not know about it, or model has a old information. Previously we used to run our batches early morning in UK time, so this is irrelevant information now. That's why what model would need, model would need an external knowledge source, and in this case it could be BESA website. So if we could have a method where my model can reach out to BESA website, scan through it, understand what details are there, and then store that information in a way that it can be accessed when somebody asks this question, that would be a RAG thing. So first thing, we need to create something called external knowledge source. It could be a website, it could be internal sources, it could be any type of resource where you are keeping information to be used by the model. That is what we mean by an external knowledge source. Now, external doesn't mean it is public facing. External means it is beyond the capabilities of the LLM as of now. So it could still be a private information store, like you have your customer database, which is completely internal to your company. That is still considered as an external knowledge source. External here does not mean public. Public information can be used, but it does not need to be always like that. So what we need to do now, we need to answer a question. In this case, we need to retrieve information from external knowledge sources, and then LLM would be performing a process here which is called RAG. So it has to get two inputs now. It has to first get an input from the user question, and second it has to get a question answer, or sorry, detail from this knowledge source which we have created, and then it is going to augment that information. My BESA website would have so much information. We just need to find out that particular requested information from it. Now, if a user is asking the question from a different time zone, then model need to augment that information in a way that it can be then given back to the user in their own time zone, not like on a random time zone. So that needs to be done, and that's what we mean by augmentation. So we will augment it, and that augmented prompt will be processed by the model. Now model knows that consider this is the website, find out from that when the start time is, and start giving me the data. And that is what happened as a retrieval, augmentation, and then model will generate the response. That is your answer. So this is on a high level what we call RAG. So first thing R, so you can clearly see what is happening. So we fetch the relevant information from the external knowledge bases or data sources based on the user query. So that is retrieval. Then we are performing augmentation here. So we need to add relevant context of it, right? And then we need to get this prompt which will go into foundation model. So it has to be converted into a format. So we need to augment the prompt which a user asked, and then my model is going to generate the output, and that response will be based on augmented output which we have provided. So that is what a RAG is. Hopefully everyone is now clear about what we are doing. So depending on the knowledge source we are providing, we should be able to get lots of answer. If knowledge source is internal information, now my model knows about internal information. But one thing you have to be clear, that the external source you are providing to model, it is not using that to enhance its own capability. Like, it is not going through all the data and then making it publicly available. It is still maintaining a private interaction to the all the requests which has happened. So if I have to give you theoretical knowledge, RAG is a framework that retrieve facts from external knowledge sources, helps a pre-trained LLM model to generate more accurate, up-to-date information specific to the particular organization and industry. So that's what happens into a RAG methodology or RAG framework. All right, good. Everyone okay so far? Now, how we implement RAG into Amazon Bedrock, that is what we want to look about. Let's go ahead and talk about how the RAG implementation happens into Bedrock. So concepts remain the same. Only the way we implement RAG will be little different than the what we discussed. So let's go ahead and talk about it. This is a pictorial representation of RAG happening into Bedrock. We still have knowledge bases. Then we have model, which is Amazon Bedrock model. We still perform augmentation and we return back the information to it. So here we are calling these external sources as a very specific thing. That was we call is a knowledge base. So knowledge base is where we would be able to have anything. Bimal has a question, what exactly an external data source? Bimal, it could be anything. It could be a PDF file. It could be your salary report. It could be all your resume or whatever information you want to feed to the model. That is what an external data source is. It could be a website. It could be a population index of India, or it could be the all the product list on Amazon. So whatever information you want to use to talk to or you want to get information from, that is what will be a external data source. So it could be anything, but it has to be given in a specific format, and we will talk about that format in a minute. Okay, so this is what RAG would look like. So in using RAG in Amazon, we need to create something called knowledge bases. Let's see what a knowledge base is here. I'll give you a little bit of theoretical information, and then Parna will show you all the links into the console and how it actually works behind the scene, how you can implement it. So knowledge base gives FM and agent contextual information for private sources for retrieval augmented generation to deliver more relevant and accurate information, right? I use the word here agent. We haven't discussed it. It is going to be discussed into the next sections. But right now, knowledge bases in Bedrock is something which is a fully managed by AWS. So you don't have to worry about maintaining and managing them. You can easily integrate them into workflow, and you will see some example when we move forward. It will help you to easily retrieve data from it. It is secure. So it is, if you have encrypted it, if you have given specific people access to it, it would all be maintained in the same way. And it also is able to tell that, okay, I am providing attribution. So when it answers that what time the BESA starts, then it would say BESA starts at 3 p.m. UK time, and it will show this information I got from BESA website. So whoever is reading would know what is the source of this information, and that would help me in understanding whether it's accurate information or not accurate information. So that's what a knowledge base in Amazon Bedrock looks like. So this is all the component which you could have leveraged. This is very simple way to ensure you are given a framework, and through that framework you are able to get as much data into knowledge bases if required. Now, how to create a knowledge base? So Step one will be to select the data source. It could be Amazon S3 as a data source. It could be a web crawler which is going to a website. It could be Salesforce. It could be SharePoint. Anything which could be utilized for that. That is called your knowledge based data sources. Now, knowledge base may be having a PDF file. Now, PDF having pictures, maybe PDF has different language information or text into different languages. So maybe I have to break it down into smaller chunks so that my model can understand it. Think about yourself. You do not read a book in one go. You read chunks of it. You read one story, second story, third story, or you read one para, two para. Same thing. I need to have a chunking happening into my data source because it may be huge, and then we need to convert into a way that my model can understand it, and that is what we mean by embedding model. And then it stores into something called vector store. So all this information which models are responding with, they are stored into a vector store, and through that vector store they are able to deliver you the contextual information which will help you in making the right answer or getting the right answer to the question you have asked. So that's what is my knowledge base is. And you will be going through all this information into the next section where Parna will help you in understanding all these things. So what happens in this process when you are feeding, let's say I feed in one PDF file to my knowledge base, that time it is going to have a embedding happening behind the scene. Embedding is basically a way of representing the text into a numerical format so we can identify that easily or we can understand the contextual information. So if I'm talking about, let's say, New York, Paris is also a similar thing like a New York. Both are cities. Both can be considered as a very metropolitan cities or maybe a very forward cities or maybe a very big cities. So New York and Paris are somewhere near into that embedding model. Whereas if I'm talking about animal and horse, they would be near to each other because they belong to a similar type of context. Like animal, horse is an animal. If I put cat, probably when I add cat into the model, cat won't go here because it does not belong into this category. Cat will be coming here into this category. But if I say, okay, I am going to add London, London would be probably residing here somewhere. It will not be residing into this section of my model. So this happens behind the scenes through something called embedding. So you should be able to see this thing into action as we move forward. So keep this information at your understanding level, and we'll show you some example that how it is implemented into the actual world. So I'll hand it over to Parna. But before that, I have one more announcement to make here. It is about people who are helping us into running this community. So we want to reward them. People who are helping others also to know about BESA. So that's where we are announcing we would be giving away Cloud Career Journey book, two copies every week. And this week we are giving it to Venkata, who has started a Discord channel to help people in learning about the workshop we are providing. So he runs the office hour in his own personal time, investing time, and he is helping a lot of people in getting through the workshop because we do not have that much time all of the time. That's why he is helping us in this particular situation. So one is Venkata. Second winner we haven't decided. So if you have posted a lot about BESA program or you are helping others into solving the workshop, we would be also looking for all the stuff, and based on that we would be giving this Cloud Career Journey book to anyone who is featured here into winner of the week. And more things are coming up, so stay tuned and make sure you are spreading the word, make sure you are helping the community, you are sharing your knowledge. It will give you also visibility and it will also help your community members. So let's congratulate Venkata, and hopefully the new person would also be soon displayed here. Thank you so much. So I'll now hand over to Parna to help you understand the implementation details of it. Okay, I'll stop screen share. Parna, if you are there, let me add you to screen, and please have your screen share.
Yeah. So just give me a minute while I share my screen.
Sure. How are you, Parna? How is Mumbai?
It's hot.
Ah,
It's getting
that's
hotter.
typical of Mumbai.
No, it's
Yeah.
a little early to be get that hot now.
Okay, good, good.
All
So
right.
all over to
Okay.
you, and please help us in
Yeah.
understanding how actually the knowledge bases work. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Ashish. I hope people are able to see my screen clearly. So, just in case you're not able to see the text, just let me know and I'll zoom in a little bit thereafter. All right. Okay, so wonderful explanation by Ashish. Thank you so much. I hope you grabbed all the analogies that he's given and got a brief idea about what the RAG process is about. So, this is the workshop that you're looking at that I'll be going through. And can one of the BESA members please share the link of the workshop in the chat? You need not follow along because it might be a little quick for you. So I'd suggest just watch it and listen to the explanations that I'm giving, and then later on you can try it out at your own time. I also have the QR code if you want to quickly scan it. So if you want to scan it, I'll hold it for about a few seconds. So this workshop, it's not only about using knowledge bases in Bedrock. It has many other things. As you know, this session is more about the extended capabilities of Bedrock. So with Bedrock, you can create AI agents also. So you'll see that there are labs for agents, building agents. There's a new feature in Bedrock called as Bedrock Flows. That's also there part of this workshop, but I won't be covering those two. The focus will be on the knowledge based part of it. So it's up to you whether you want to leverage this workshop and do the extended part also. But the focus, as I said, we will go through the knowledge base part. All right, so I guess most of you would have scanned the QR code by now, else you can just take the link that the team will share with you. So, what are we going to be building today? So, the main focus of this workshop is to build a chatbot. Okay, so the chatbot is going to be acting like a loans agent chatbot, okay, or a mortgage agent chatbot. As a user or somebody who wants to take up a loan, you would have a lot of queries, right? And it can be really complex and time consuming, going through multiple documentation, clauses, procedures. So what can help you out here, ask multiple questions, get all your confusion cleared, is having a chatbot which has domain knowledge about this area, especially the knowledge about the organization where you want to take the mortgage or loan from. Okay, so we are going to be helping the user in that way. Now, the knowledge base that we are going to be creating is going to be augmented with all that knowledge. We are going to connect it to a data source, and our data source in this workshop is going to be S3. So there can be multiple sources of data in Bedrock, but in this workshop, S3 is going to act like our data source where we are going to be uploading our documents, which is in the form of PDF, and the knowledge base as such is going to sync up with all the latest documents from S3 as and when we sync it, and it will be having the up to date knowledge. So why do we need RAG? So as Ashish had mentioned, when you have enterprise data and the data is constantly changing over time, so your LLM is frozen in time, right? So it has knowledge only up to a certain date, and obviously you have enterprise data which you don't want to go and put it into your LLM, and this data keeps on changing over time. It is constantly getting updated. So how do you take care of that situation so that a person gets accurate and relevant information? So that's where we make use of RAG, that is retrieval augmented generation. So we are augmenting the generation of the response, right? So we could have directly prompted our LLM. Instead of doing that, we will augment it, meaning we are going to add context from our RAG data source and provide it to the LLM, okay, to get the final response. So this is just the crux of what this lab is about. Obviously, you can go into this workshop and read about it. And the focus here is the mortgage application use case. Okay. So now the first things first, as you're going to be running this in your own account, it will require you to spin up a cloud formation stack. So you'll see that in the instructions they've asked you to download a cloud formation stack, which I've already done so. And then you'll need to spin up a stack. What is a stack? A stack is a collection of AWS resources. So all the resources that will be used in all these labs. Okay, it's not only for the lab that we are focusing on, it's for the others as well. So be aware that this cloud formation template will create many resources beyond what we need for the knowledge bases workshop. Okay, so it is a good idea to clean up after that, so that all the lambda functions, there's DynamoDB tables, etc., which get also created. So those are also destroyed at the end. So please be aware of the fact. Once you download this, you need to go and select that particular template, okay, the cloud formation template, and upload it. So for example, I have already pre-created it, but just to walk you through, so I already have gone and done it, and I have created the stack just for the benefit of time, because it takes some amount of time. But how would you do it? Once you've downloaded it, you will go and select choose an existing template, because you already have it ready made. Upload a template file, okay, and you'll choose the file from your local file system. If you're really curious, I would suggest go and click on this view infrastructure composer. It is really interesting. It will actually show you a non-code way of what it looks like. I'll just keep it open in case you want to see it later, but we'll come back to it. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, it's spinning up. Okay, so this is actually what gets created when you spin up. It's taking some time to load. Let me see if it's showing. Okay, I think it's not picked up. Let me go and upload it again. All right, let me upload it. Okay, so this is my template. And like I said, if you're really interested to see what it looks like, all the resources, it will show up here. Okay, so let that load. I'll proceed ahead. So once you do that, you need to give your stack name. So you can see the stack name that has been provided in this workshop. You can use the same one. This is the one that we'll use. Put it here. Next. Okay, I already have one, so I'll give it a new name. Keep all the settings as it is. Don't fidget around with any of the settings. Keep the default one. You don't need to change anything for this workshop. Just need to click I acknowledge. Go to the next step, review everything, and go ahead and submit it. Once you submit it, you'll see that your stack will be created, and at the end of the creation process, you'll see a lot of resources are created. So for example, over here you can see there are lambda functions, there are DynamoDB, etc., which is used throughout the other workshops also. For us, our main focus is on this S3 bucket over here that gets created. So frankly, this is the only one which we actually need. Okay, so that too gets created. And at the end, you will see that the stack creation is completed. So it's really interesting to see how it progresses through and all these resources get created. If you're interested, you can look at the template over here also. Or like I said, go and have a look over here. It will show you all the resources that the CloudFormation template creates. Okay, so this is just for your interest. This is the only bucket that we are interested in our case. All right, once you've done that, now we need to go and use Bedrock, and we need to enable certain models. Okay, so going back to the instructions over here, we've created our stack. So next we'll go over here. In the prerequisites, you'll see that it's asking you to create upload your document to the S3 bucket. Okay, so the S3 bucket is your data source that we are going to use, and we need our documents uploaded there. So it's asking you to create a folder. So this comes under prerequisites. Now why do we need it? Just to briefly explain the process, Ashish has already done it, but diagrammatically probably you'll get a good understanding of what's going to be happening here. So if you see over here, the data source is going to be your S3. From the S3 data source, your document is going to undergo a pre-preparation or data preparation processing, where it's going to be split up into what we call as chunks. Okay, that's called as chunking, and there are different strategies for it. How many chunks you want to split up that entire document for. From that chunk, we are going to create embeddings. Now, remember, a text document, a machine learning model doesn't understand text. It understands only numerical data. So these chunks need to be, I'll say, transformed into the numerical version, what we call as vectors or multi-dimensional arrays, right? So for us humans, it's a little difficult for us to imagine beyond, say, 3 dimensions. There can be multiple dimensions to that data, and that is represented as a vector. And when it's for text, we call it as an embedding. So it generates those embeddings, okay? And to generate the embeddings itself, we need something like a embedding model. So that also we are going to be doing it in our process. We are going to choose an embedding model by Amazon. Okay, so the model is going to actually go and create those numerical representations or vectorize it. And now we need to store that also somewhere. So we are going to use something called as a vector database. So there are different types of vector databases. In this particular lab, we are going to use OpenSearch serverless, but there are other options as well. Thereafter, once the entire real-time process, what exactly is going to happen once we have this lab set up, the user is going to make a query. Say they're going to ask questions regarding the eligibility for a loan. Okay, so once they ask a query, that itself needs to be converted into embedding. Okay, how do we do it? Using the embeddings model. Using these embeddings, we need to find some similar, I will say, the similar documents which are there, but the documents are now also converted into embeddings and they're stored in the vector db, right? So these embeddings, the generated embeddings, are going to be looked up in the vector database, and we are going to find similar documents, in the sense similar in the 3 dimensional or multi-dimensional space. So we'll say they are similar, semantically similar, if the distance between them in the multi-dimensional space is close together. So once it finds those embeddings which are close together, it will retrieve those embeddings or similar documents, as we say. That's going to be augmented to already the user query, whatever the user asked, the user prompt, and then that's going to be passed to our LLM over here. So the LLM will have context not only of the user's query, plus it will have additional information from our RAG data source. Okay, so that is called as augmenting it, and then finally we'll get a response. So this is what is going to happen out here. All right, so now that you've understood what process is going to happen, so as I said, S3 is going to be our data source. Let's go and upload a document. So you can see in the workshop, you need to go and download a PDF from this website. Now it's up to you. Frankly, I've gone through the PDF. It's a little complicated. If you want your own PDF also, you can do that. Okay, else you can go and download it. Once you've downloaded it, you need to go to your S3 bucket and create a folder called as knowledge base. So creating a folder is really simple. You can just go over here, click on create folder. Say I'm just creating another folder because I've already created one, and say create folder. Okay, once you have that folder, say you've created the knowledge base, you'll need to upload the documented that you downloaded. Okay, so whether it's your own PDF or it is the one that they've suggested in the workshop. So I've gone and uploaded it. All you need to do is click on upload, go to your local file system and upload it. Okay, and then your data source is ready. Now your data source is ready. Next thing that we need to do is, now we need to go to Bedrock and enable the access to the models that we are going to be using there. Okay, so you must have seen in the first workshop session, we had to enable certain models that we are going to use. Similarly, over here, we are going to do the same. Okay, so let me go to Bedrock now. All right, so now I'm here. I need to go and enable model access for certain models. So the models that we need to enable access for, they are mentioned over here. Okay, so you might see something like, if you've never enabled any models, you might see this button where it says enable specific models. So in my case, if you see over here, I already have enabled certain models. That's why it's asking me to modify. So you might see something else. You might see something like what it's showing in the workshop, because I already have certain ones enabled. So the ones that it's asking us to enable are these ones, the Anthropic Claude 3 Sonnet and Haiku. And these two we need it for the embeddings generation. So like I showed you in the diagram, we need an embeddings model for that also. So we are going to be using these two. So all you need to do is go back over here, and you will need to click on modify model access if you've ever used it before, or enable specific models. And you can see that I have already done that, but if you wouldn't have done that, you would see empty checkboxes, something like this. Okay, so you'll need to click on those checkboxes. So I had done the same. So these are the two which have been mentioned for the embeddings. And then there's Claude 3 Sonnet and Haiku. So you'll need to click on the checkboxes, and once you've done that, you'll have to go and say next and submit it. Okay, it will take a few seconds, and thereafter what you'll see is access is granted. All right, once the access is granted, the next step for us to do is, now we need to create the knowledge base. Okay, so we'll go and create the knowledge base. That's the next step. So let me go back over here. Okay, so you'll find knowledge bases under builder tools. So to create a knowledge base, you can just click on create, and you'll get three options. We are going to be choosing the first option, knowledge base with vector store, because that's what we are going to be using. So once you click on that, you can use the default name which is given
Aparna,
to
can
your
you
knowledge.
zoom in little
Little
bit, so
more.
it would be easy for viewers?
Is this better
Yeah, that's good.
or more?
Thank you.
Okay, sure. Yeah. So you can give the default name which is there, or you can put in your own name. So for example, if I just keep it the way it is, over here you need not change any permissions. If you have an existing service role that you ever created in the past, where you're giving permissions for Bedrock to go and talk to S3, then you can use that. Or better still, I would say that let it create a new service role. So this is going to create a new service role for Bedrock to talk to S3. So let it be as it is. This is the place where you get to choose your data source. So a lot of people were asking that what kind of data sources can I use. So you can see over here, you can use S3, you can use web crawler, you can use a customized one, and there are third party data sources. So in our case, we are going to be using S3. So I'm just keeping the rest as it is. It's good to tag your resources in the real world and also capture logs, but in this case you need not do that. Next, where is the data source located and in which folder? So over here we need to give the URI. So you'll be browsing to your S3, and this is my bucket. You'll see this is the name of your stack, right? So the name of the bucket will be similar to that. You select that bucket, and you'll see the folder that you had created previously. Just select the knowledge base folder. Okay, so if I select this, next you'll see that there is something called as the parsing strategy. So you'll keep it as default, but what is parsing strategy basically? So if you are going to be parsing, your documents are going to have only text in them, then this is the default or the best parser, because it doesn't need to look at charts or illustrations or tables. If there is a rich source of content in your documents where you have images and charts, graphs, any of those sort of things, then you might need to use some different sorts of parsers. So there is one of them. This is a managed parser, managed by AWS itself. So you don't need to really go and select the underlying foundational model which will do that. You don't have to do that. Everything is managed. You can see it's a managed service. Or if you want some more customization for parsing, then you can go and choose your foundation model also. So you get these two options, plus any kind of system prompt instructions you want to provide, that also you can provide over here. Okay, so in this case we are not going to go into too much complication, because ours is a plain PDF which has only text in it. So this is good enough. So it says, see, select this option for processing text from your data. So this is your default. Next, chunking. Now I told you that we are going to split that big PDF into multiple chunks. So a chunk could be made up of many tokens. right? So there are different chunking strategies. You can see there is the default chunking which we are going to choose, which is actually going to make chunks of 300 tokens in size by default. But you should be aware that there are other available chunking strategies. Some may be more suitable to your work, your use case. Sometimes if your PDF is already broken down into single files, you may not want to even chunk it, right? So these are three types of chunking. Fixed size chunking is where you can determine how many tokens it should have. You are customizing it. Then there is an option for hierarchical chunking. So what is this kind of chunking? Wherein you there is something called as a parent chunk and a child chunk. So basically, when you are going to prompt your rag for answers, it's going to go and look out for these child chunks, and the child chunks are already linked to bigger chunks called as parent chunks. So it's like a pointer to the parent chunk. So when it shortlists the chunks to return back, it doesn't give the child chunks, it will give the parent chunk which has bigger context. So basically you are adding more knowledge to your LLMs, augmenting it more with more context, I'll say. So sometimes that might be your strategy. Then there is semantic chunking. So this, under the hood, it uses even a foundation model. So it is an intelligent chunking process. It just does not randomly chop up your documents like you're seeing in the other cases. Here it finds, it does a similarity search, okay, and more relevant kind of chunks are chunked together. So these are different strategies. In our case, we are going to keep it as default chunking. These are again advanced options. I'll just give you why they are used. Transformation functions. So sometimes you don't want to use any of the chunking strategies which are there already in Bedrock. Like, you might choose no chunking and you want to create your own customization chunking process using, say, a lambda function. So you can do that also. So this is a more advanced way of doing chunking. And then of course there are other settings. This is so when the embeddings are created, right? So when the data is pulled from the data source and Bedrock is generating the embeddings, so that time, if you want to encrypt the data, you can use the default KMS key or you can use a customized encryption key. So in this case, we are going to use our default KMS key. This is just for your data privacy, I'll say. So keep it as it is. But these are the options which are there. You can see over here that we are going to add only one data source, but you can have multiple data sources as well. Okay, and then you will be proceeding on to the next step. So I have already created my knowledge base, which you would have seen because it takes some time. So I have already pre-created it, and you can see it over here. Okay, so this is the knowledge base that I created in the same way that I showed you earlier. Okay, now when you're creating the knowledge base, I think I closed that. My bad. 1 minute. Let me show it. There's a step where it lets you choose the embeddings model also. Okay, so let me go back here. Okay, so I'm keeping everything else the same. This is where you are going to choose the embeddings model. Okay, so how do you choose the embeddings model? So remember, we had enabled two of our embeddings models from Amazon. So the Titan text embedding and the Titan embeddings G1. So just select the one that they've mentioned over here. Think over here they would have said, I think this is the one we've chosen, the first one. Okay, and then just say apply. So there are more advanced configurations which you can do for the embedding. You can choose the embedding type and all. Also you can choose the number of dimensions, right? Like I said, embeddings are nothing but multi-dimensional vectors, so you can choose even the number of dimensions. So these are advanced options. We are not going to play around with that, so let it be as it is. And finally, where are we going to store those embeddings? Okay, now we have the embedding model, but we need to store it somewhere. So there are two options. You can either go for the quick create one. This is going to create one for you. So in open search serverless, it's going to be creating a collection for you over there. Or if you already have an existing one, then you can choose that. Okay, so we are going to go with the first option, and you can see it's already pre-selected over here, and there are more advanced options also. like you can see, but we'll keep the first one. All right, so there are some additional configurations which are there. Always there'll be something extra. And then you have the review. You can just review through everything if you've selected everything correctly, and then you click on create the knowledge base. This takes you sometimes 5 to 10 minutes. So I have already done it beforehand. So once you do that, you will see something like this. Um, Yes. So you'll see this message on top, knowledge base has been created successfully. So you'll see this green bar. Okay. And you'll also see a message where it says that it has been created, but you still have to sync the data. Okay. So the next step for us is to sync the data. It's not yet synced with that S3 document. It's just created, you can say, like a container. And if you're curious, you can actually go and see in Open Search Service. You'll see over here under serverless, you'll see a collection will be created also. Okay, so this all happened when you clicked on that knowledge base creation button. This went and happened over here, and this is created. Okay, so next point, we have to sync it, like I said. So how do you sync it? So coming back to knowledge bases. Okay, if you click over here, you go in there. Okay, so you'll need to choose the knowledge base, and then you'll have to click on sync. So you'll notice I have already synced it, so you didn't see one message, but this is the message that you will see. So if you wouldn't have already synced it, you'll see something like, I think I lost that window. Yeah, it says one or more data sources have not been synced yet. So it's intelligent enough to tell you, hey, before you start testing it, please go and sync it. So the next step for you is actually to select it and then click on the sync button. Okay, once the sync is done, that again takes another 5 minutes. So I've already done it and kept. Then you are ready to test it. Okay, so I've already synced it, and let me go back here. Okay, so now it's time to test it. So I'm going in here, and there is an option to test the knowledge base. Okay, so this is what it looks like. Okay, so usually this window will not be open. I have tested it before, so it's constantly opening up. So you will click on this test button. Okay, so you're going to click on the test button. Next thing you see over here is the test window comes up. There's an option over here, generate responses. Now what does that mean? So there are cases where you might want to leverage the generation or generative power of the LLM, or you might say that, hey, I want information purely and solely from my RAG database. I don't care about the LLM. Okay, so in that case you will turn it off. So right now it is in on state. I will just turn it off just to show you without the LLM what the output will look like. So I'll just pick up the suggested prompt that they've mentioned over here. Let me go down. So we've already covered these steps. We've covered these steps as well. I think the prompt is here. Yeah. So this is the suggested prompt because this is related to the loan document that we have uploaded. So once I enter this prompt, so remember now it's going to be querying only our knowledge base. I've turned off the option to go and augment it and ask to the LLM as well. I just want to purely test whether my knowledge base is working as expected. So you can see it has gone and given me some answers, some like 5 answers. And now if you want to see the details of the chunks, like I said, it's going to output several chunks which are relevant to the query the user asked. So you can see over here, show details. And you can see so much detail over here of each chunk. So there are 5 outputs we got, right? So for each chunk, it's giving you the details. You can actually open up the metadata over there. So the metadata is the information about the chunk that it has gone and searched in my vector database, found it to be closely related. It did a similarity search, and it's showing information over here. So you can see all the metadata information. So if you're wondering what is this metadata information, I would suggest go and look at the open search serverless collection that was created. Open it up over here and you will see all the information over here under indexes. Okay, so you go to indexes, you can see there. So this is the index which got created behind the scenes. So I think Ashish is here to prompt me to talk quickly.
Yeah, I act as a scarecrow like when it's time. So yeah, it's
Yeah,
4 o'clock, and yeah, obviously it's a good demo. And
yeah,
we don't want to like go through all the workshop. We want you to do it, but we
yeah,
want to get you started, and that's why we have given enough information for you to get started. And it's completely okay if you feel lost some places, or you feel discouraged, or you feel there's confusion happening. That's why we have Discord channel. So put your
hmm.
questions there. A lot of people are responding back, but please complete these workshop. That would give you a good hands-on. And as Parna has explained that in very detail, rewatch the video and then complete the workshop. Any last things, Parna, you want to mention?
Yeah, so I'll quickly wrap that up. So, like I was saying, you can just correlate those things what you just saw over there in Bedrock. Okay, and one last thing, just I'll like to add, Ashish, if I've just got 2 minutes. So, in case you want to look at the details of what are configurations, so it's not as simple as just putting a prompt here. You can actually go and configure many things over here. So, click over here, and you'll see a lot of options. Chunking options you can see. Okay, search options you can see over here. Okay, you can see whether you want to do just keyword search, or you want to do a mix of both. You can actually apply filters. So filters is basically you want to search only certain documents, you can apply certain filters. You can apply guardrails. You can re-rank, meaning ranking between the chunks also, right, which is the most relevant one. So a lot of things you can do under configuration suited to your use case, right? So play around with the configuration and yeah, try it out. Yeah, that's
Great
about
demo,
it.
Parna. Thank you so much. And hopefully everyone has enjoyed and learned something new. And now we are moving into our next part, which is about behavioral part. So for that, I would invite Prasad, and we have our guest speaker. Thank you, Parna. I'll add Prasad to the screen now. Prasad is here. Hey, Prasad, looks you are in India enjoying your time, isn't it? You're on mute.
Yes, yes, I am in India. I am in India for a few weeks here, mostly in Delhi, NCR region, and I'll be few days in Hyderabad. So if anyone wants to catch up in person, feel free to ping me. But thanks, Ashish and
Great.
Parna. It was amazing, amazing session. As Ashish mentioned, see, doing a workshop end to end in such a short span would be difficult, and especially if you're looking into it for the first time, it might feel overwhelming. But when you watch the recording and try it out yourself, things will be a lot easier. And keep your questions coming in Discord channel. Now Venkata, one of the community member, is running office hours, so try and join that in case if you are stuck, and do help each other. With that,
Great.
without further ado, I think we should move to the
Let me
next
add Roland to the
section.
screen. Hello,
Hey
Roland.
Roland.
Hello, how are you?
All good, sir. All good. Hope we haven't kept you waiting for long.
No, I was having fun looking at Parna go through a
Great.
Bedrock workshop, doing embeddings, seeing all the workshops out there. So very
Great. So I'll hand it over to both of you. I'll off camera, and then we'll have a lot of discussion. Questions should be there into chat, so please keep your questions coming. And probably at the end we will have some time with Roland. So any specific question you want to ask, we would be able to get answers from Roland. Over to you, Prasad.
Thanks, Ashish. Yeah, so the topic for this particular session, the fireside chat, is what is the AWS SA interview process looks like end to end. As you all know, in the behavioral track, we are covering the solutions architect track, how to get a job as a solution architect at AWS. In the first few sessions, like in the first session, Jeff Barr and Paul Duffy talked about the role of solutions architect at AWS. And in the second session, Camelia came in, recruiter at AWS, and talked about uh, how does recruiters scout for SA candidates, right? Now we have Roland. I'll let Roland introduce himself.
Hi, thanks, Prasad. My name's Roland Barcia. I am a worldwide director in our AWS specialist and partner organization. So I'm the overall director for our worldwide specialist SAs, and I run our specialist tech team. That includes a few different teams that run our technical community, building out solutions in our solution library, doing prototyping, early career talent, as well as the engineering team that builds Workshop Studio. I think you were just seeing Workshop Studio in action, running a Bedrock workshop. So very, very excited to be here to talk to you about really what it becomes end-to-end to become an SA, and what I look for, what some of my peers look for, etc.
Yeah, thank you, Roland, for taking out time and like joining us on Saturday. As you have heard, like Roland kind of leads any all the essays would somehow at some point like be dotted connected to Roland. They will be reporting to Roland in some way or the other. All the essays, specialist essays worldwide. So thank you taking out time. Now, what we would like to understand in this session, I'll start with a very simple question. Um, what are the different stages of a solutions architect interview process?
Yeah, so let's talk about the stage. And there's a little bit of variability between different teams. So in general, it kind of looks like there's an assessment stage. Sometimes you can go through an actual automated test assessment that online. There's different questions. I'll go a little bit in detail what's in the assessment. Then usually from there, you do an initial phone screen, usually with the hiring manager, so an SA manager. Sometimes it could be another senior SA, where we kind of go through a little bit of both functional and behavioral type of questions. And then if you pass those stages, you go through what we call a loop. A loop interview is 4 to 5 interviews where we mix functional, but really important is our AWS leadership principles, and trying to go through your experiences through the lens of our leadership principles to see if you can be a successful Amazonian and an SA. And really, we work backwards from our customers. And so what we really want to know as an SA, a solution architect, is out there day to day, solving some of the world's toughest problems that our customers may have. Anything from they're building a solution that they want to out of different services, like you saw examples right now through the workshop in the previous section. You might be building a generative AI application and a agentic workflow, and a solution architect is going to go work with the customer, help build that architecture, which foundation model to use. It could be troubleshooting network issues if you're like a network specialist. So how do VPC, how do you set up a VPC? How do you do a multi-account strategy? It could be security. So that's a range of things, but really helping it through the lens of helping our customers. So we really want to make sure that you have certain attributes. A lot of people that are very good technically, write really good code, and they may struggle to teach other people how to do that, right? So we want to make sure that you have a little bit of that as well, like you saw previously with Parma, right? She's trying to instruct and teach people how to go through a workshop. Sometimes you got to do that through their own application.
Yeah, and you touched upon a little bit about my next question, that what skills are required to become a SA. But if we dive deep a bit more into what should a person be preparing, like you talked about multiple stages that they're in an interview process for an SA, but what should a candidate prepare to go through, like to clear these interviews?
Yeah, so I think in the first stage, so let's talk about the assessment. So when you go through the assessment, there's a little bit of few things that you can do. So we look at like 3 primary areas, right? One is technical situations. And so you'll get through some tests and they'll ask you scenarios, and these are taken from the field. So real world scenarios around things like cloud computing or security threats, etc. So you'll spend some time doing that. And there's usually 4 different technical areas that they go through. So for example, it could be cloud computing, it could be security, it could be about 4 different areas depending on what role you're interviewing for. And it'll take you through a scenario and you'll answer some questions. So they're looking to see how you would approach a problem. And so put yourself in a troubleshooting situation. Then the next one is what we call like the technical experiences. So they'll try to ask potential situations and response to get some some of your work style and how you work to get an indication of what type of worker you would be. And then the last one is like something around work styles. So it could be things around industry questions and things like that. But I would say the assessment's going to go through and ask, depending on the level you're interviewing for, various questions around like cloud computing, VPC, IPv6. So there might be questions at the cloud level, and you should be expected to answer that. If you're interviewing for a data specialist, they might ask you questions about databases, relational databases, and your experiences there. So the assessment uses AI technology actually to generate, based on your profile, certain questions. So it's really cool. I would say, we really want your experience. So like, be prepared to kind of go through maybe an AWS certification test, like the SA certification test might be a good thing. There's plenty of different courses online you can take on third-party sites as well that help you kind of prepare for an AWS certification, cloud practitioner, and solution architect. Going through those sometimes the associate level will really help you through that assessment.
Yes. And we'll come back to the question about, like for a specialist versus generalist, you talked about a data engineer a bit. We'll come back to that. But okay, now this is what people will be preparing for an online assessment. Next stage, phone interview.
Yeah, so the phone screen, I would say, is kind of an introduction. So usually one of the things we want to do is get your experience, depending on what level you're in, right? And so you'll go through a phone screen, and usually there's a set of questions that mix functional and leadership principles in the question. And to prepare for the phone screen and the loop is I would say, a similar process, in that you want to think of things that you've gone through in your experience. So for example, I came from another tech company, and usually they go through like your customer obsession, especially in the phone screen. And I think of something in my experience that I kind of helped through. And then I think about, we always hear about the STAR format. So what's a situation, task, right? What action you took specifically, and then the results. And so think about a few different scenarios within your experience, and then you can go to our Amazon website that goes to our leadership principles. So like customer obsession is usually one that managers use during the phone screen because it starts with customers. And then you would kind of go through that scenario, and they might ask you a few functional questions as well.
Yes. Now, diving deep a bit on, there is a question from the audience, because you talked about specific things here. What prior background in IT a SA candidate should possess, like a system admin, developer, manager? Now,
Yeah,
we know that there are different roles have different kinds of, but yeah, I'll let you chime in.
Yeah, I would say it really depends on what role you're interviewing for. So, an IT, having a background in IT is generally good, especially if you're going to become a general cloud practitioner. I do think there are some things you have to learn that are specific to cloud, but I think it's important to have that. If you're going for a position as an ML specialist, some knowledge around, AI, machine learning, databases, I think is important. I always look at things like lanes. So for example, if you were a database administrator, you should go and do a certification as a cloud data engineer, because you could then recast some of the differences between what it means to be an on-prem database administrator to what it means to manage a database in the cloud. Or if you're a developer that builds Java code, you might be going for a role as a serverless developer, and you might need to learn things like event-driven architecture with Lambda and how that would work. And those are some of the functional things you might learn, if that makes sense.
Yes. So this is what generally I say: no skill that you have is obsolete. All the skills can be transitioned easily into cloud. Uh, Even if you're a, like, let's say a mainframe person, now we have a mainframe organization, such a big industry in the cloud, right? So any skills that you have prior on-prem skills, that will be very handy, and use those to transition to cloud. It will become much easier.
Yeah, there's an SA in our organization that has a YouTube video, right? Cloud with Raj. He was a mainframe developer in his previous career, and he transformed his career as a cloud developer. And I think now we're really living in a stage where cloud folks are now transforming into AI folks as well, right? So like and I think a lot of the questions, for example, that you'll hear, learn and be curious is one of our leadership principles. And one of the things that people will ask in one of the questions is really around the fact of how do you keep learning and how do you keep evolving your skills? And that's important, right? As you transition from someone on-prem to the cloud, and someone to the cloud might be infrastructure, learn how to do containers and Kubernetes. That was my background when I joined the company. I was had a background in Kubernetes and built clusters on-prem for Kubernetes. I joined as a serverless SA leader, and I became kind of the containers tech lead. And I was deep in Kubernetes, but I had to learn a lot about AWS to do the security and networking parts of EKS. And then I actually had to learn the native container services like ECS and Fargate, which a lot of our customers do as well. So I continuously have to evolve your skills. Even as a director, I was just doing an agentic workflow lab this morning for fun, right? So that Saturday morning is usually my time to do self-learning, and learn and be curious is an important aspect of your job here at AWS.
Yes. And if you are interviewing for AWS, at some point you will be asked this question: how do you keep yourself up to date? That is a given. Like, the question is fixed. It's going to be asked to you for sure. So have a good answer for it. And if you are doing it on a regular basis, you will have a good story to tell about what you are learning and how you are learning. Okay.
Absolutely.
Now let's move on to the third stage, which is AWS Loop. So a person has cleared online assessment, got through the phone screen, in which it's a bit of a technical and bit of a functional fit, and a behavioral skills where Amazon leadership principles will be important. Now the person moves to the final stage, AWS Loop interview. What happens there?
Yeah, so the AWS Loop interview, which usually in person, can be virtual depending on the situation. We're able to do both. You'll go through a series of interviews, and what will happen is the manager will select a series of folks within the organization or team that will be part of that loop. It could be another manager on a related team. It could be people from the same team. And then there's usually another person we call a bar raiser, which is a third neutral party. The manager does not get to select that person. So the bar raiser is someone from a completely different organization that'll kind of come in and be kind of a third party, fair, objective person. And what happens is each of them really take, maybe one or two of them will do functional. So if you're interviewing for a job as a container specialist versus an SA generalist, there'll be some functional questions. So one of them will take that, but the majority of them will take usually 2 or 3 leadership principles and ask you questions about your own experience to see if you have those characteristics. So what one person might take disagree and commit, which is one of my favorite leadership principles, where you disagree with someone in an architecture or in a situation, and you want to think back to your experiences. What I tell people to do, it's hard to fake this, because what we really are looking for is your experiences. And so go back in your history and get a bunch of different times in your life. Write down, what you've done and put it in star format. So, what was the situation? What was the task that needed to be done? What action you took, and what were the results? A lot of people kind of fall down on the results. They don't think data driven. But think of a story and look at the different leadership principles, like invent and simplify. When have you taken some type of process? We use mechanisms here, but when you take some type of process in your life and made it simpler, Think of something that you've done in your life, write it down in star format, and be ready to kind of identify. You won't know which leadership principle, because we designed the questions in such a way that it's not always intuitive to tell which leadership principle they're testing you on. So be ready to kind of think about the question, listen to the question, and then try to best match one of your scenarios in your life, in your professional life, that you tried to do that. So they might be testing you on learn and be curious. And they might be asking you how you went around and learned something. They might be testing you on ownership, or bias for action. And so think about all these like leadership principles, go to the AWS website, read them. That's almost being a great Amazonian, because people switch roles very frequently when they get here. It's like, oh, I want to work here, I want to work here, is just as important. And then from a functional perspective, the essay questions will vary, right? And what we're looking for in the functional side of it, we have something called levels. So like very introductory knowledge of a technical space could be a 100 level all the way to 400 level. So for example, someone might ask you a question like, why would you use a load balancer type? And a level 100 answer might be, they know the purpose of the load balancer, but they really can't go into depth of things. Whereas a 200 level might be something like, hey, I understand the difference between the routing algorithms like round robin or session affinity. I understand the purpose of high availability and load distribution and some basic health checks. But then 300, 400 level might be able to go really deep around, things like cooldown periods, and can describe the details of session affinity and the cookie that's like placed in the header to pin you to a server. Can talk to kind of the advanced, like how do you achieve zero downtime with these load balancers, and what do you need to do? And that's just one area of networking, right? So in the functional interviews, really, they're looking for how deep you can go in a topic, and that kind of is an example of that.
And that's true. I'll talk about both. At first, the behavioral side, we have the 16 leadership principles, and it's very important for you to think about the stories as Roland mentioned in your past experiences, format that in a star format, and map them to leadership principles, and understand what the question is being asked, and accordingly, retrieve the right kind of, best matching and answer it. But equally important is the functional fit, and the questions would be very similar. If you go onto Google, and you'll be able to find all the questions very frankly, whether it is for leadership principles, whether it is a functional. And a simple question like, what is load balancer? Your answer is going to determine what level you will be hired at, and if you will be hired at or not, like those things. Because everyone knows what a load balancer is, but to the level of depth you are able to understand, and the way you would be able to explain is what matters. So yeah, in fact, one of the question in this chat was, can we have an example of functional? And you actually answered that by giving you an example. So thank you so much for doing that. Now I understand, Roland, that there are different teams, different geos, everywhere the process might vary a bit. But when it comes to SA, are there any specific leadership principles that you're looking for? Like out of the 16 principles, if I ask you, what are the top 5 leadership principles that you would be focusing on if you are hiring as a hiring manager? What will those 5 leadership principles would be?
Yeah, so for an SA, I would look for definitely customer obsession. Like I would say almost every role does, customer obsession, because we work backwards from our customers. Me specifically, I look bias for action. So that's one of the ones that speed. Our customers run into situations. How do we jump and we help our customers, help? So now our leadership principles are designed on purpose to have some tension with each other, right? And so insist on highest standards is one of the other ones that I might add, to kind of counterbalance the bias for action. Why? Insist on highest standards. We want to make sure that when we're working with our customers, we're using things like the well-architected principles, that we're building things that are, secure, production worthy, can perform, can scale. And so I think that's pretty important. Ownership is big for me as well. Ownership is one of these leadership principles that really bring out your ability to take something from the beginning and take it to the end. And so when we help our customers, we want to make sure that our customers get the help they need and get it through the end. And so that is a key requirement for me, to bring out like a situation where you took something end to end. And even if you didn't own the last pieces, make sure it's shepherded to the next person. Now, depending on the level, if you're going for a more senior level, L6, L7, I definitely will use Think Big. And Think Big, from my perspective, is really thinking beyond a particular problem, and thinking more about the ability to scale out to the broader, how does what you build affect not the one customer, but the thousands of, really millions of customers, right, out there. How are you able to affect an industry, right? And so for senior levels, I look at Think Big as well. Another one that I usually put in is Write a Lot and Learn and Be Curious. We talked about those as well. Just because you're always redefining your skills. Already talked about Learn and Be Curious, but how you progress and learn new technology, because technology doesn't stand still, right? Like 3 years ago, we weren't barely talking about generative AI, and now it's everywhere. And people have had to pick up that skill very quickly. Our Write a Lot is important because technical people tend to be very opinionated. Like when I was leading the container and serverless SAs, definitely they had opinions. All the serverless folks, like serverless is the best stack. And then you had the folks that were like, Kubernetes is our most open stack. And they would fight with each other, or not fight, but like disagree and commit on a bunch of things, right? But our Write a Lot is really thinking of it from a customer perspective and saying, what is the right solution for this customer and this business problem, this industry? So like I've used all of them depending on the role.
Yeah, agree. Different leadership principles apply. There are a few other in the mix, like earn trust, for example. That comes as a customer obsession, that we try and earn the trust of the customers by obsessing for them. Now we talked about few other things that are.
Yeah, I was going to say earn trust is very important. I usually do that one in the phone screen. Right. So usually earn trust is a pretty typical one that's done in the phone screen, because sometimes a lot of folks are going to be really good up here, but I think earn trust really goes to the heart. Like, want to make sure that, someone can trust you, and our customers can trust you, and your peers can trust you, and your leaders can trust you. And so I usually use that during the phone screen.
And one of the best ways you can showcase earn trust is by actually sharing your failure stories. What I see people doing in interviews are sharing their success stories, but they shy away storing their failure stories or the conflict stories. If you're in industry, you would fail and you would have conflicts. So, and that maps very, like in a way to our leadership principles. Earn trust is your failure, and disagree and commit, that Roland was so much stressing on, is your conflicts, right? You will have conflicts. How would you disagree and commit on those? So cool. Now we talked about what are the kind of behaviors we are looking for a solutions architect role. If I need to, if you can share something around what are the common reasons you have seen candidates getting rejected at these different stages?
Yeah. So number one is they're very good. Like a lot of people are very good at describing a technology, but not describing how they used it to solve problems in the real world, or even if you're early career in your studies, etc. Meaning they're reciting by memory a technical thing, etc. So we're really looking at not just your technical knowledge, but how you use it. If you look at the STAR format, right? A lot of people start leaving off the R. I find that very often they helped a customer, they describe that they built this architecture, they describe the things they did, like they created the architecture diagrams, they implemented the skeleton, but they don't kind of go in and look at the results where the application was deployed versus the customer started using the application. Sometimes when they go in, oh, there was some initial failure, so we revisited the architecture. Like, it's much better to start talking more about the results, and actually spend a little bit more time in the results. So I think a lot of people kind of are really good at describing the actions they took, but they really can't articulate the customer problem they were solving or the technical problem, and then they're not able to describe the results that solve that problem. So the edges tend to be very thin, and they're like mostly in the middle. But what we want to see is that you truly understand the customer problem and that you're looking at the results you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, the why is important, for any technology that you are using or any customer problem you are solving. Even if the customer is a problem, you understand why that customer has this problem. Is there a better way to solve it? What are the alternatives you considered? All of those things. And I remember one of the interviews that I was taking, and as you mentioned, Roland, results is where people lack. One of the person replied saying that I got promoted as a result. That is a byproduct, right? Like, what was the actual, you did a great job because of which you got promoted, great, but what was the customer, how did it benefit the customer, is what we want to understand when you are articulating the story.
Correct. It's the result of what you did for the customer, for the stakeholder. And even if you're working in an internal team, like you could be coming from a platform engineering team that's building an internal platform, or your customer, the development teams, and how you service the development teams on that internal platform. So even every situation has a customer you're targeting for. So don't just think if you're in a back office type of job that you don't touch the customer. You should understand the end customer, by the way. If you're in a back office suite and you understand the end customer, then you're really thinking, outside the box. On the functional side, sometimes questions seem very simple, but like what is a load balancer? But failing to go to areas of depth and why you use it in an architecture and what role does it play and what are the intricacies can really bring out what I'm really trying to fish out is, have you used a load balancer? Have you deployed a load balancer? Have you used it, and not that you read about it? And so I'm really trying to fish out, have you actually used it? And our interviewers are usually pretty good at sniffing I'm just reading and I memorize versus I used it. Because if you use something in real life, you're going to reveal, I remember one of my interview questions about Kubernetes, I spent a lot of time answering oh, the cluster failed and it was missing a certificate and it couldn't find a certificate. It's hard, and I gave the certificate error that I was getting. It's really hard to fake those things because you cut your hands with it, you used it, etc.
Yeah, that's the way you can stand out in a technical interview. A simple question like what is load balancer, or SQL versus no SQL, these kinds of questions that will be asked to you. Every person would know them. Every person would answer the technically right thing. But if you're able to, map it with your experience, like in this particular project, when I deployed a load balancer, this is what issue was. Or in my previous project, when we were deciding which database to use, we use this database for this application, this database for this application. That's the level of experience. And if you're able to articulate it in the star format, you're going to definitely stand out. So
Yes.
Thank you, Roland, for sharing this. I know we are on time, but one last question before we wrap it up. Let's say a candidate has gone through these and they were not successful. Okay, what are can they reapply? What is the process for that? How long they should be waiting?
Yeah, so it's really hard to tell from the candidate's perspective. I would say you could always reapply. Now, um, there are different scenarios where someone might go through the interview process and you do very well on the behavioral things. Like you say, oh, this person would be a great Amazonian. They show great customer obsession. They show learn and be curious, and they've done great, but they're really not as deep as networking as we need. But as I was talking with them, I realized this person is really good at application development, and they know a lot about like writing Java code, or they know a lot about Kubernetes. And you know what? I might, say, hey, you might be, hey, you great Amazonian, but not fit for role, right? I would say you look for the role with your experience, and you reapply right away. Other times, if you're kind of not meeting the behavioral aspects, sometimes you can be great functional. You might want to wait a bit because and build up experience in your own career and start addressing your real life. Maybe wait a year or two and go out in industry and go get some real world experiences and then come back. When you and think about them and customer lens, how you disagree and commit with people. Think about those behavioral aspects and start using them day to day, because they're generally good life principles to live by anyway, right? If you're helping your customers, disagree and commit. Like people often go, side by side and against each other, but like learning how to work through disagreements and take a path forward. Those are all things you can use in your life.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much, Roland, for joining us today. Ashish, do we have any other question from the audience? I was keeping a
Yeah,
tab.
means
It
no, I
feels like
wanted to,
we are
but
all.
so we Prasad, we need to figure out, we need to have this behavioral track little longer because we have a lot of question, and probably it is in interest of everyone's time. Today we break it, but yeah, we should be having little more time for Q&A because people are asking a lot of question. So if your question didn't get answered, audience, please send them into Discord. We'll try to get some answer from Roland and then probably relay it back to you. But obviously, we have time limit. Everyone is committing time on weekend, so we want to respect that. So that's what I could say. But yeah, great discussion, Roland. Really, really great insight. I would say everyone, whether they are planning to appear immediately or later, would get benefited from it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Now, I just want to do some
Thank you.
housekeeping item at the end. Like people who are here, please complete the workshop. We'll share the link. Share the learning on LinkedIn group. Put it on Discord. If you are getting problem, check it into the Discord group. People would be helping you out. And then if you like BESA program, if you like the role and stock, share this on LinkedIn so that everyone knows about it and then rewatch it. And always go ahead and provide detail into feedback so that we can look into it and then give you the best possible outcome from the session. That's all I wanted to say, Prasad.
No, cool. Thank you everyone for joining us today. I know 90 minutes on a weekend is too long a time, but hopefully this added some value for you folks. And thank you again, Roland, so much for joining us for the session. It was a real pleasure having you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thanks, Roland. And all the volunteers who are answering chat behind the scene. There are so many questions. So thank you for that. And we will see you into the next session. Keep your questions coming, keep your feedback and suggestions coming so we could improve and give you the best value for the time you are investing with us. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good day.